The divine foundation of harmony begins with recognizing that every home is more than just a physical space. It is a living energy field shaped by the consciousness of those who inhabit it. When we speak of God's blueprint for peace within a home, we are not referring to external order or material comfort, but to a deeper, spiritual resonance that comes when each individual aligns their inner world with divine truth. Harmony is not something that is forced or demanded. It is something that emerges naturally when hearts are attuned to the same spiritual frequency. Every family, every partnership, every relationship is an opportunity to reflect the divine order that governs the universe. Just as the planets move effortlessly in their orbits under the guidance of unseen cosmic laws, a peaceful home flows in balance when guided by divine principles of love, respect, and understanding. To build a foundation rooted in divine harmony, one must first understand that peace begins within. You cannot bring tranquility into your household if your own inner world is filled with conflict, resentment, or fear. The home is a mirror of your state of consciousness. What you carry inside will inevitably manifest around you. If you dwell in anger, you create tension. If you cultivate calmness and compassion, you create serenity. God's blueprint is not a set of rigid instructions. It is a pattern of energy that flows through creation, inviting us to align with it through our thoughts, emotions, and actions. It is a call to remember that we are spiritual beings temporarily housed in physical forms, and the relationships we share are sacred instruments through which divine love expresses itself. At the core of divine harmony lies the realization that love is the natural state of being. Every soul longs for connection because connection is our true nature. When we forget this, when we allow ego to separate us, we begin to experience discord and disharmony. But when we return to love, we return to God's original design. In such a space, every word spoken carries compassion, every action flows from kindness, and every silence holds understanding. A peaceful home is not one where everyone agrees all the time. It is one where everyone is allowed to be themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. It is built upon the awareness that every person is a reflection of the same divine source, and when we honor that truth, we automatically step into harmony. The divine foundation also requires trust in the unseen intelligence that orchestrates life. Too often, we try to control outcomes, impose our will, and fix others according to our expectations. Yet peace cannot coexist with control. Harmony grows when we surrender to the greater wisdom of the universe and allow life to unfold naturally. When we trust that every event, even those that challenge us, has a divine purpose, we release resistance and invite calmness into our hearts. This trust is what transforms fear into faith, chaos into order, and separation into unity. It is the spiritual equivalent of laying strong roots deep in the soil before the tree begins to grow. Without that inner grounding in faith, the structure of peace cannot stand. The energy we hold in our hearts determines the energy that fills our home. When you wake up with gratitude, speak with gentleness, and choose to forgive rather than argue, you are silently constructing a temple of peace. God's presence reveals itself not through grand miracles, but through simple acts of love practiced daily. Every smile, every moment of patience, every prayer of thankfulness becomes a brick in the foundation of harmony. Children learn not by what they are told, but by what they feel and witness. If they see love being expressed through kindness, they grow up with inner balance. If they feel tension and negativity, that energy becomes part of their vibration. Thus, when you bring divine awareness into your daily interactions, you are not only nurturing your own peace, but shaping the spiritual future of those who share your home. Another aspect of divine harmony is forgiveness, for no home can sustain peace without it. Human beings are imperfect, and conflicts are inevitable, but holding on to resentment poisons the energy field of the household. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, it is a demonstration of spiritual strength. When you forgive, you release the weight that keeps your heart bound to the past. You open space for healing, for love to re-enter, for God's light to flow freely again. A peaceful home does not demand perfection. It thrives on understanding. Every mistake becomes a lesson, every disagreement an opportunity to grow closer. The divine blueprint teaches us that love is not the absence of difficulty, but the choice to remain compassionate in the face of it. When divine harmony is established, communication changes, words become softer, tone becomes gentler, and the atmosphere becomes lighter. People feel safe expressing themselves because the energy of judgment has been replaced by the energy of acceptance. Even silence in such a home feels full, not empty, filled with the quiet vibration of mutual respect. The divine foundation is not something that is built once and left unattended. It is a living, breathing process that requires continual mindfulness. Every day brings a new chance to choose peace over pride, love over fear, and understanding over reaction. When each person takes responsibility for their own vibration, the collective energy of the home transforms naturally. A crucial part of aligning with God's blueprint is recognizing that the home is a spiritual training ground. The family dynamic mirrors the lessons our souls came here to learn: patience, humility, compassion, forgiveness. When challenges arise between loved ones, it is not a sign that something has gone wrong, but that life is giving us a sacred opportunity to grow in love. Each misunderstanding becomes a teacher. Each moment of tension is an invitation to practice awareness. Through this lens, the home becomes holy ground, a place where souls evolve together in divine partnership. The divine foundation, then, is not only about outer peace but inner evolution. It is about creating a vibration where growth and grace can coexist. Harmony is also deeply connected to the energy of gratitude. Gratitude is the spiritual glue that holds families together. When you appreciate the small things, shared meals, laughter, quiet evenings, you strengthen the bond that unites hearts. Gratitude turns ordinary moments into blessings and transforms the home into a sanctuary of abundance. Even in times of struggle, gratitude shifts the focus from what is lacking to what is already present. It opens the heart to receive more love, more understanding, and more peace. God's blueprint operates on the frequency of gratitude, for it is only in appreciation that divine flow continues without resistance. The divine foundation of harmony calls us to be conscious creators of the atmosphere we cultivate. Every thought and emotion contributes to the spiritual architecture of your home. When you bring awareness to your own energy, when you pause before reacting, breathe before speaking, and choose kindness over criticism, you become an instrument of divine order. You begin to notice subtle changes. The air feels lighter, the conversations flow more easily, and an unspoken sense of unity begins to settle in. This is not accidental. It is the manifestation of divine alignment. Energy follows intention, and when the intention is peace, peace becomes inevitable. Another layer of this foundation is the acknowledgement of divine timing. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive immediately. The process of healing and harmonizing relationships takes patience. God's blueprint is not rushed. It unfolds in perfect order. When you trust the timing, you free yourself from anxiety. You allow space for others to grow, for hearts to open naturally. This patience is itself a form of love, for it respects the sacred rhythm of each soul's journey. Harmony is not a destination. It is a continuous alignment with divine flow. To live within this blueprint means to invite God into every corner of your life. It means allowing prayer, meditation, and reflection to be daily practices that keep your spirit centered. When the mind is quiet, divine guidance can be heard more clearly. That guidance then influences how you respond to others, how you handle stress, and how you make decisions. The more attuned you become to that inner voice, the more effortlessly peace radiates from you. Your presence alone begins to shift the vibration of your surroundings. You become the anchor of divine calm in your home, a channel through which higher energy flows. Ultimately, the divine foundation of harmony is built upon the simple yet profound understanding that God is love. And wherever love is consciously expressed, peace naturally follows. When you see every family member as a manifestation of the divine, when you treat your home as a sacred extension of God's creation, every act, no matter how small, becomes an offering. Sweeping the floor, preparing a meal, comforting a loved one, or sitting in stillness together, all become spiritual acts aligned with divine order. Through such awareness, the home transcends its physical form and becomes a vessel for higher consciousness. And in that sacred vibration, harmony ceases to be something you seek. It becomes who you are. The energy of intention in relationships is the invisible force that shapes the quality of connection between souls, the silent current that determines whether a home vibrates with harmony or tension. Everything in the universe begins with intention, and the home is no different. Each word spoken, each action taken, each thought held in the mind carries an energetic signature that radiates outward, influencing the emotional atmosphere of those who share the space. When we understand that intention is the creative power through which divine energy expresses itself, we begin to approach relationships not as accidental encounters, but as sacred opportunities to project love, compassion, and spiritual awareness. The energy we bring into a relationship determines what we receive from it. If our intention is to control or to be right, we create resistance. If our intention is to understand, to uplift, And to give, we open the channel for divine peace to flow. In every interaction, the question beneath the surface is not, what are you saying? But what energy are you bringing? People may forget words, but they never forget how your energy made them feel. Intention is the unseen language of the soul. It operates beyond logic, communicating directly from heart to heart. A peaceful home is built when each person consciously chooses to infuse their intentions with love rather than ego, awareness rather than reaction. Love as intention softens tone, reshapes perception, and heals wounds that words alone cannot. This is not about pretending to be kind or forcing positivity. It is about genuinely tuning your energy to the frequency of compassion so that every gesture becomes a reflection of divine alignment. The moment you wake up each morning, your energy sets the tone for the day. If your first thoughts are gratitude and peace, that vibration extends into every corner of your home. If they are frustration and worry, the same energy ripples outward. God's blueprint invites us to become mindful architects of our energetic environment. When we consciously set intentions like, today, I will speak from love, or I will listen with patience, we begin to transform the invisible currents that shape our relationships. Energy responds to focus. What we direct attention to expands. When you focus on harmony, harmony grows. When you focus on conflict, conflict magnifies. It is not the circumstances that define the energy of a home, but the consciousness of those who inhabit it. In relationships, energy of intention also determines how we interpret the behavior of others. Two people can experience the same situation and see entirely different realities based on the vibration of their perception. When your intention is grounded in love, you look beyond words and actions to see the soul behind them. You recognize that anger is often fear in disguise, that criticism is a cry for understanding, and that silence can be a need for healing rather than rejection. This shift in awareness changes everything. Instead of reacting defensively, you begin responding with empathy. The energy of love creates space for honesty and connection, while the energy of judgment creates walls. Every time you choose to interpret from the heart rather than the ego, you reinforce the energetic structure of peace within your home. The law of attraction works powerfully through intention. Whatever energy you radiate is mirrored back to you. When you choose to send love, love returns. When you send resentment, you attract the same vibration. This is not about spiritual punishment, but energetic resonance. The home becomes a reflection of the frequencies most consistently expressed within it. That is why Dyer often said, "You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are." The energy of intention is therefore the foundation of every relationship's evolution. It is not enough to wish for peace, one must become peace. When your inner vibration matches the energy you wish to experience, the external world reorganizes itself accordingly. Intention also carries the power of healing. Words spoken with sincerity can shift the emotional climate of a household in moments. A genuine apology infused with humility has more healing power than 1,000 explanations. When two people meet in the vibration of truth and openness, energy flows freely between them, dissolving years of tension. Intention has the ability to rewrite energetic patterns, to erase old imprints of anger and disappointment, and to create a new reality built on mutual respect. Each time you act from love rather than habit, you are rewriting the energetic script of your home. Every positive intention, no matter how small, adds a thread of light to the fabric of family life. To cultivate the energy of intention, one must become aware of their inner state before engaging outwardly. Before speaking, pause and ask, what energy am I sending right now? This simple awareness interrupts unconscious patterns of reaction and invites a higher frequency into the moment. When you speak with the intention to understand rather than to win, your tone naturally softens, and the conversation shifts from confrontation to connection. When you act with the intention to serve rather than to control, relationships begin to breathe again. Intention is not about perfection, but about presence, the willingness to bring consciousness into each interaction. Love, gratitude, and awareness are the trinity of divine intention. Love is the vibration that unites, gratitude is the vibration that amplifies, awareness is the vibration that sustains. When these energies flow together, they create a powerful field of harmony. Love allows us to see others as extensions of the divine. Gratitude reminds us to cherish what we have instead of longing for what is missing. Awareness keeps us from slipping into unconscious behavior. Together, they transform ordinary relationships into spiritual partnerships guided by divine intelligence. The energy of intention also extends beyond human relationships to the physical space of the home itself. Every object, color, and arrangement carries energy. When you decorate or organize your living space with the intention of peace, the energy shifts tangibly. Lighting a candle, playing soft music, or maintaining cleanliness are not mere chores. They are acts of spiritual alignment. The physical environment mirrors the inner environment, and when both resonate with peace, the home becomes a sanctuary. This is how divine intention manifests into physical reality, through conscious action guided by sacred awareness. In times of conflict, the energy of intention becomes even more important. It is easy to stay calm when everything flows smoothly, but true spiritual practice begins when emotions rise. In those moments, the ego urges you to defend, blame, or withdraw. Yet, if you can pause and reconnect with your original intention, to love, to understand, to bring peace, you shift the vibration instantly. You remind yourself that the goal is not to win, but to heal. Even if the other person does not immediately respond, your energy begins to influence the situation subtly. Over time, consistent loving intention dissolves resistance like sunlight melts ice. This is not weakness, but mastery, the conscious choice to elevate the energy rather than mirror negativity. The energy of intention also demands authenticity. Pretending to be loving while secretly harboring resentment creates energetic dissonance. The vibration you emit always reveals the truth of your inner state. Real peace cannot grow in pretense. If you feel hurt or misunderstood, acknowledge it honestly within yourself and then choose to release it with compassion. Intention is not about suppressing emotion, but about directing emotion toward healing. When you align your feelings with your higher purpose, even pain becomes a path to peace. Authenticity allows divine energy to move through you without obstruction, cleansing and transforming the home from within. Every relationship carries a shared energetic field that reflects the collective intention of those involved. When both partners or family members commit to bringing awareness to their energy, transformation becomes inevitable. The home starts to feel lighter, conversations become more meaningful, and even challenges feel purposeful. The energy of intention acts as the silent architect, building invisible bridges of understanding. Over time, you begin to sense a sacred rhythm, an effortless flow of giving and receiving that feels guided by something greater than yourself. This is divine harmony in action, the physical manifestation of God's blueprint working through human hearts. Children, too, are deeply influenced by the energy of intention. They may not understand words, but they instinctively absorb vibrations. When parents interact with mutual respect and compassion, children feel safe and loved. That sense of energetic security shapes their emotional and spiritual development for life. A home infused with loving intention becomes a spiritual classroom where the next generation learns peace not as an idea but as an experience. Through example, they come to understand that love is not just something you feel, but something you choose moment by moment through conscious intention. The beauty of the energy of intention is that it transcends circumstance. No matter how chaotic life becomes, you always retain the power to choose your energy. Even in moments of disagreement, you can silently set the intention. Let there be understanding here. Even when hurt, you can choose, may I see this through God's eyes. These subtle energetic shifts ripple outward, altering the emotional landscape of your relationships. Divine energy responds to sincerity, not perfection. The moment you align your intention with love, the universe conspires to support that vibration. Over time, this practice of intentional living becomes second nature. You begin to notice that the atmosphere of your home feels sacred, that interactions flow more smoothly, that even silence carries a sense of peace. This is not accidental, it is the result of deliberate energetic cultivation. Every thought, every prayer, every act of kindness builds momentum in the direction of harmony. The energy of intention becomes the heartbeat of the household, synchronizing everyone with the rhythm of divine love. When the energy of intention governs your relationships, you no longer try to control or fix others. You simply radiate peace so powerfully that everything around you begins to align with it. The energy of intention is ultimately the language through which God communicates in relationships. It is the divine current flowing beneath words and actions, guiding souls toward unity. When you tune into this energy, you begin to live in co-creation with the universe. You stop reacting to circumstances and start responding from purpose. Your home becomes not just a place of residence, but a living expression of divine will. A sanctuary where peace is not sought but embodied, where love is not demanded but freely given, where every interaction becomes an offering to the divine presence, that the power of conscious communication lies in the understanding that every word carries energy and every conversation has the potential either to heal or to harm. to bring people closer, or to create distance. Communication is not merely about exchanging information. It is about transferring energy, revealing intention, and nurturing connection. When communication becomes conscious, it shifts from being a reaction to being a deliberate act of creation. It is through the awareness of what we speak, how we listen, and the energy we carry while doing, so that true harmony begins to take root within the home. Conscious communication is a spiritual practice as much as it is an emotional skill, for it requires presence, humility, empathy, and a deep awareness of the divine energy that flows through all human interaction. When we speak unconsciously, we often react from patterns of fear, pride, or insecurity. Words become weapons rather than bridges, and conversations turn into competitions of ego rather than exchanges of truth. But when we communicate consciously, we pause before we speak, we listen with the heart rather than the mind, and we respond with the intention to understand rather than to defend. This awareness transforms communication into a sacred act, one where words become vessels of love and silence becomes a doorway to understanding. Every sentence uttered in awareness becomes an offering to peace. Conscious communication is therefore not about speaking more, but about speaking from a deeper place within oneself where truth and compassion coexist. To communicate consciously, one must first develop the capacity to listen. Listening is one of the highest forms of love because it demands presence. True listening means hearing not only the words being spoken, but also the emotion, the fear, and the longing behind them. It means quieting the inner dialogue that prepares rebuttals or judgments and instead offering full attention to the other soul before you. In a peaceful home, listening becomes the foundation of connection. When people feel heard, they feel valued, and when they feel valued, they soften. The energy of defensiveness dissolves, replaced by openness and trust. God's blueprint for communication begins with silence, the stillness that allows divine wisdom to enter between words. Conscious communication also requires awareness of tone. The vibration behind words often speaks louder than the words themselves. A gentle tone can calm anger, while a harsh tone can ignite conflict even when the message itself is harmless. The tone of voice carries emotional frequency, and that frequency shapes the atmosphere of a conversation. When we speak from love, our tone naturally aligns with peace. It is not about sounding perfect or rehearsed. It is about being authentic and kind. The energy of your tone reflects the state of your heart. When your heart is calm, your voice becomes soothing. When it is agitated, your voice becomes sharp. By attuning your heart to divine love before you speak, you automatically align your tone with harmony. In conscious communication, honesty is essential but must always be balanced with compassion. Truth spoken without love becomes cruelty, and love without truth becomes avoidance. Both extremes create imbalance. The art lies in expressing truth with tenderness, where honesty is offered not to wound, but to awaken understanding. This kind of honesty is rooted in spiritual integrity, the willingness to be transparent without attachment to being right. When truth is delivered through the energy of love, it does not create resistance, it opens the heart of the listener. Divine communication is never about overpowering another. It is about aligning with the higher truth that exists within both. Another aspect of conscious communication is recognizing that silence can be as powerful as speech. Sometimes, the most profound message is conveyed not through words but through presence. Silence gives space for reflection, for divine energy to settle, and for emotions to find their balance. In moments of conflict, silence can prevent escalation. In moments of peace, it can deepen connection. But silence must be conscious, not the cold silence of withdrawal or punishment, but the warm silence of awareness. It is the kind of silence that listens inwardly for guidance before responding outwardly. This silence allows divine intelligence to guide the next word, ensuring that what follows contributes to healing rather than harm. Every home carries an energetic rhythm created by the way people communicate within it. If communication is filled with criticism, sarcasm, or blame, the vibration of the home becomes heavy. If it is filled with encouragement, gratitude, and empathy, the vibration becomes light and nurturing. Conscious communication is the process of shifting that rhythm through mindfulness. It means becoming aware of habitual patterns, interrupting cycles of complaint, reactivity, or avoidance, and replacing them with awareness and intention. A conscious communicator recognizes that peace cannot exist where words are used carelessly. Words are energy, and energy builds or breaks. Every time you choose to speak kindly, you reinforce the frequency of peace within your environment. Conscious communication also teaches that listening to God within oneself is just as vital as listening to others. Before reacting to a situation, pausing to connect with your higher self allows divine wisdom to influence your response. This inner dialogue between you and the divine keeps you grounded in patience and compassion. The ego seeks to be heard, the spirit seeks to understand. The ego wants to win. The spirit wants to heal. When you speak from the spirit, even difficult conversations become sacred, for you are no longer speaking from separation, but from unity. This alignment with divine consciousness turns ordinary discussions into spiritual practices, reminding everyone involved of their shared divinity. In relationships, miscommunication is one of the most common sources of conflict, yet it often arises not from what is said, but from what is assumed. Conscious communication eliminates assumption by encouraging clarity and curiosity. Instead of reacting, one asks questions. What did you mean when you said that? Can you help me understand how you feel? These simple yet powerful questions shift the energy from accusation to collaboration. They demonstrate a willingness to understand rather than judge. When both individuals adopt this approach, misunderstandings dissolve quickly and trust strengthens. A peaceful home thrives not because conflict never occurs, but because communication remains conscious during it. Another layer of conscious communication involves emotional transparency. Many people suppress feelings out of fear of rejection or conflict, yet repressed emotion eventually manifests as resentment. Conscious communication invites honesty from the heart, expressed respectfully and without blame. Saying, "I felt hurt when this happened," is vastly different from saying, "You always hurt me." The former opens the door to healing, while the latter builds walls. Conscious communicators take responsibility for their emotions rather than projecting them. This creates a space where vulnerability is safe and authenticity is celebrated. When every family member feels they can speak their truth without fear, emotional intimacy deepens and divine harmony naturally unfolds. To communicate consciously also means to see communication as energy exchange, not transaction. When you speak with kindness, you are giving energy. When you listen with empathy, you are receiving energy. The balance between giving and receiving keeps relationships alive. Problems arise when communication becomes one-sided, when one speaks only to assert and the other listens only to endure. Conscious communication restores balance by ensuring that both voices are honored and both energies are respected. The home becomes a circle of dialogue rather than a battlefield of opinions. Children, in particular, absorb the patterns of communication they witness at home. When they observe parents speaking with respect, listening with patience, and resolving disagreements calmly, they internalize those patterns as normal. They grow into adults who communicate consciously because they have lived within that vibration. Conversely, when they grow up hearing shouting, blame, or cold silence, they carry those imprints into their own relationships. Thus, every word spoken within a household carries generational significance. Conscious communication is not just a tool for peace today, it is an investment in peace for tomorrow. Forgiveness also plays a vital role in conscious communication. There will always be moments when words are misunderstood or spoken in haste. Holding on to these moments creates energetic blockages that weigh down relationships. Conscious communicators learn to clear these blocks quickly through apology, empathy, and forgiveness. The willingness to say, "I am sorry," or "I understand how that made you feel," restores energetic flow. It allows love to resume its natural circulation. Forgiveness is the ultimate act of conscious communication, because it acknowledges imperfection while reaffirming connection. Energy alignment before communication is another sacred principle. Before initiating an important discussion, take a few breaths, center your mind, and set an intention for the highest good of all involved. Visualize light surrounding the conversation, guiding it toward clarity and peace. This simple act of energetic preparation can completely transform the outcome. Instead of entering the conversation from fear or anger, you enter it from love. And love, being the highest frequency, naturally orchestrates words in a way that promotes understanding. Divine energy flows most freely through calm hearts and open minds. In conscious communication, awareness extends even to body language and presence. Your posture, facial expressions, and gestures all convey messages beyond words. A gentle touch on the shoulder, a nod of understanding, or eye contact filled with sincerity can communicate more than any sentence could. When physical presence aligns with spiritual intention, communication becomes multidimensional. It transcends words and enters the realm of vibration, where souls connect directly. This is how divine communication operates, not through intellectual agreement, but through energetic harmony. Ultimately, conscious communication is an act of creation. Each interaction is a chance to either build a bridge or a barrier. The energy behind your words determines which one you build. When you choose awareness, empathy, and authenticity, you are consciously constructing an environment of safety and love. Every family conversation becomes a spiritual practice. Every disagreement an invitation to grow, every silence a reminder of divine presence. Through this kind of communication, relationships evolve into partnerships of the soul, where mutual respect and compassion replace fear and dominance. When communication within a home becomes conscious, everything begins to shift. The energy of the space lightens, misunderstandings reduce, and love begins to flow more naturally. People start to feel seen rather than judged, heard rather than dismissed, valued rather than ignored. The home transforms from a place of noise into a sanctuary of understanding. Conscious communication is not about perfection or eloquence. It is about awareness and intention. It is the decision to speak from the heart, listen from the soul, and allow divine wisdom to guide the flow of words and silence alike. When practiced consistently, it becomes a way of being, a living embodiment of God's blueprint for peace expressed through the vibration of every word, every pause, and every breath shared within the sacred circle of home. Letting go of ego and control is one of the most profound acts of spiritual maturity and the key to unlocking true peace within any home or relationship. The ego, in its endless desire to dominate, to be right, to have the final word, becomes the very obstacle that blocks divine harmony from flowing. Control, though it often disguises itself as care or responsibility, is rooted in fear, the fear of losing significance, of being vulnerable, of trusting life's natural rhythm. When relationships are governed by ego, communication turns into competition, love becomes conditional, and peace remains distant. But when ego and control are released, what emerges is freedom. Freedom for love to breathe, for understanding to expand, and for God's presence to guide each moment. Letting go is not an act of weakness. It is an act of surrender to a higher wisdom that knows far more than the limited mind ever can. The ego's greatest illusion is the belief that it is separate from others, that it must constantly defend its identity, and that control is the only way to ensure safety. Yet, in trying to control, the ego creates more of the chaos it fears. It demands obedience, expects perfection, and resists anything that challenges its sense of superiority. In the context of a home, this energy manifests as arguments over small matters, emotional distance, and an atmosphere of tension. The ego wants recognition, while the soul seeks connection. The ego demands to be heard, while the soul desires to understand. The moment we recognize that these battles of ego serve no higher purpose, we begin to awaken to the peace that comes from surrender. Letting go of control means trusting in the divine intelligence that orchestrates life. It means accepting that every person in your home has their own journey, their own lessons, and their own timing of growth. You cannot force another's awakening, just as you cannot command a flower to bloom before its time. When you release control, you open space for grace to move. You begin to see others not as extensions of your will, but as souls navigating their own divine path. This shift in perception transforms relationships from power struggles into partnerships of mutual respect. Each interaction becomes softer, more patient, more compassionate. Because you no longer seek to mold others, you seek to love them as they are. Control often arises from fear, the fear that if you do not direct every outcome, things will fall apart. Yet, in the divine design, everything has order, even chaos. Trusting this truth is an act of faith. When you let go of control, you are declaring that you trust God more than you trust your fears. You are allowing the universe to handle the details while you focus on embodying love. This surrender does not mean passivity or indifference. It means aligning your actions with divine flow rather than egoic resistance. It means doing what feels inspired and then releasing attachment to results. Peace begins when attachment ends, because attachment binds you to worry, while surrender frees you into serenity. The ego also feeds on comparison. It measures worth through external validation, status, possessions, achievements, or authority. In a home, this energy translates into competition between partners, unrealistic expectations of children, or resentment when one feels unseen. Letting go of ego means seeing through these illusions. It is remembering that your worth and the worth of others come not from roles or accomplishments, but from the divine essence within. When this understanding takes root, judgment fades, envy dissolves, and genuine appreciation arises. The family dynamic transforms because love replaces performance. People begin to feel valued not for what they do, but for who they are. Letting go of ego is also an act of deep humility. It is the willingness to admit when you are wrong, to apologize when you've hurt someone, and to forgive when you've been wronged. The ego resists these acts because it fears loss of power, but the soul knows that true power lies in vulnerability. A home built on humility becomes a sanctuary of authenticity. No one pretends to be perfect. No one hides behind pride. Mistakes are acknowledged, emotions are expressed, and healing becomes a shared experience rather than a private struggle. Humility opens the heart, pride closes it. When humility becomes a family's foundation, divine peace naturally follows because love flows without obstruction. Letting go of control is also about releasing the need to fix others. Many people believe they are helping when they try to correct or manage those around them, but often this comes from ego rather than compassion. True love does not seek to change, it seeks to understand. When you stop trying to fix others, you give them the gift of space, the freedom to evolve in their own time. This does not mean ignoring issues or tolerating harm. It means replacing manipulation with mindfulness and replacing force with faith. Sometimes silence heals more than words, and patience teaches more than correction. The divine flow knows how to guide each soul perfectly. Your task is simply to trust that process and maintain your own alignment with peace. The ego thrives on being right, but relationships thrive on being kind. Choosing kindness over the need to be right is one of the most powerful ways to dissolve egoic energy. When disagreements arise, ask yourself whether the peace of the home is worth sacrificing for the sake of being correct. Most often, it is not. Letting go means prioritizing harmony over victory. It means valuing connection more than control. This simple shift changes the entire dynamic of communication. Arguments lose their intensity, forgiveness becomes easier, and love becomes the natural language spoken within the home. In every relationship, there is a divine rhythm that cannot be forced. When you let go of ego and control, you begin to sense that rhythm, the flow of giving and receiving, speaking and listening, holding on and releasing. Trying to force this rhythm creates friction, but surrendering to it brings balance. Life, like music, requires pauses as much as movement. Control resists those pauses, surrender embraces them. When you stop trying to conduct every moment and instead allow divine timing to orchestrate events, you find that peace has been waiting there all along, beneath the noise of striving. The act of letting go also allows forgiveness to flourish. Control and ego hold on to grievances because they feed on the story of being wrong. The soul, however, seeks liberation through release. Forgiveness is the ultimate surrender. It is choosing to let love be greater than the pain of the past. When you forgive, you are not excusing the action, but freeing yourself from its energetic hold. This release lightens the vibration of the home. The air feels clearer, the emotional energy softer. Everyone benefits from one person's act of forgiveness because the home is an energetic ecosystem. What one releases, all feel. Letting go of ego invites you to practice non-attachment in daily life. Non-attachment does not mean detachment. It means being fully present without clinging to how things should be. It means loving without possession, giving without expectation, and helping without seeking credit. Non-attachment is the space where unconditional love grows. When you release the need for control, you stop viewing love as a transaction and begin to experience it as a divine state of being. Relationships deepen because they are no longer bound by fear or conditions. Love becomes pure, effortless, and infinite. Ego thrives on reaction. It cannot exist in stillness because stillness reveals its illusion. The moment you pause before reacting, you reclaim your power from the ego. You begin to see situations as opportunities to practice awareness rather than battles to be won. This pause is sacred. It is where divine consciousness enters. Through this pause, control loses its grip and peace becomes possible. In a home where people practice pausing before reacting, arguments dissolve quickly, misunderstandings are clarified, and love becomes the default response. Letting go of ego also means letting go of roles and labels. You are not just the parent, the partner, or the provider. You are a soul experiencing life through these expressions. When you release identification with roles, you see others beyond their roles as well. You see your spouse not as a function of expectation, but as a divine being walking beside you. You see your children not as extensions of yourself, but as individual souls with unique purposes. This perception transforms the home into a space of spiritual equality, where each person's essence is honored. Hierarchies dissolve, and love becomes mutual rather than conditional. Control creates tension, but surrender creates flow. When you release the need to control every detail, how people act, how events unfold, how outcomes manifest, you make space for divine creativity to work. Often, the universe delivers results far more beautiful than anything the ego could have planned. But these blessings can only enter when you loosen your grip. The tighter the control, the less room there is for grace to move. Trust becomes the bridge between effort and ease, between human will and divine will. The more you trust, the more you realize that peace was never something to create, it was something to uncover by letting go. Letting go of ego and control requires awareness of triggers. Every time you feel the urge to dominate or to prove your point, pause and ask, what am I afraid of losing? The answer will always reveal a deeper truth. Perhaps it is love, respect, or a sense of safety. When you meet that fear with compassion rather than resistance, it dissolves. The energy of control is simply love distorted by fear. Transform the fear back into love through awareness, and the need for control fades naturally. This inner alchemy is what turns conflict into connection. The journey of letting go is ongoing. Ego will reappear in subtle forms through impatience, criticism, or the desire for acknowledgement. But each time it does, you have a choice to feed it or to observe it. Observation weakens the ego's power. The more you observe without reacting, the more detached you become from its influence. Over time, the home becomes infused with this calm detachment. Even when challenges arise, they no longer disturb the underlying peace. This is how spiritual maturity expresses itself, not through avoidance of conflict, but through the ability to remain peaceful amidst it. Ultimately, letting go of ego and control is the pathway to divine harmony because it aligns you with the flow of unconditional love. When you no longer need to dominate, you can finally connect. When you no longer seek to impress, you can truly express. The home becomes a living reflection of this surrender, a space where love moves freely, where forgiveness comes easily, where everyone feels safe to be themselves. In releasing control, you gain peace. In surrendering ego, you rediscover unity. What once required effort becomes effortless, for life lived without control flows with the rhythm of God's infinite grace.